I'm Jennifer Della Quadri, and this is the Raising Happy Teens podcast, where you learn how to successfully guide your teenager into adulthood without losing your sanity in the process. Let's do this.
Welcome back to the podcast. In this episode, I'm talking with my friend and fellow parent coach, Darlynn Childress. I've had her on the podcast a few times in the past, but we're talking this time specifically about her experience transitioning her youngest to college and now having an empty nest, or as she likes to refer to it, a roomier nest. So this episode, she'll be talking about her story. I'm asking her questions about it. And then we also talk about how to really prepare for this phase in parenting and how to handle it when it happens. So whether your teenager is off to college or nowhere near that, it's a fun listen and you'll learn a few things. So without further ado, let's dive into the episode. Okay, here we are. I'm here with Darlynn again. You've been on my podcast a few times, and we always have such good conversations, which is why I wanted to invite you on again to talk about this thing that I know you're going through, and I think a lot of my listeners are going through as well. So if anyone has not listened to who you are and previous episodes that we've done together, can you just take a little moment to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. My name's Darlynn Childress, and I'm also a parent coach. And I help moms stop being so reactive to their kids' behavior. So, kind of say, like, I help moms stop yelling, but really my program is called Calm Mama Coaching. And it's to tap into, like, when we look at our kids' behavior and it drives us crazy and it triggers us and we make it mean things, I kind of help people understand that children behave the way they behave because of their emotions and their immaturity, and how to parent from that lens. And that requires us being calm, and it requires us understanding how our kids are feeling and thinking. And then I teach limits, how to set boundaries, all of that in my program. So we've talked about teens on here because
Yeah.
you have a focus on kind of the older kids. I'm a toddler to teen coach because I really am more a mom coach more than anything else. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And you and I have had some really great conversations. And I know that you just recently went through a big change in your parenting life and dropping your youngest son off at college. And Darlynn is now a empty nester, or as she likes to refer to it as roomier nest, which I
Yes.
also like. It just sounds a little bit better.
Yeah. And I think we can talk about why I'm calling it roomier nest and getting into all the details. But when you have college age kids and young adults, it's not truly empty because there's a lot of revolving door aspect of it. And it's roomier in terms of I have more space and time for myself, but then that can contract also at any time.
Yeah.
So it's not like I think of as people who are like our parents, who are grandparents, that they really don't need to parent us anymore. They're not like,
I hope
they're,
not.
we hope not. I mean, that's like a whole thing we should talk about, but what does it look like now? Like, what's my role as I define it? But thinking about that stage is really truly empty. Like your kids have gone and made their own nests.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, my kids are in college. And so they're, this past summer, my oldest was home all summer. And my youngest was home, and then all their college friends were around, and it was not empty.
Yeah, far from it.
But yeah, exactly. So it's like roomier, like expands and contracts, this nest.
Yeah, and I really am enjoying observing your process of this because for me, it validates a lot of the challenges that I'm going to face, but I'm currently like worrying about facing. Because I know, as you know, the teen years, it's like it's a slow letting go process, but at the same time, you have this evolving relationship happening. At the same time, you're like, I want this person to be independent. I want them to figure their stuff out. I want them to go out and live their life. And then they do. And it's like, wait a second.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What about me? What about our relationship? What about all the good times we had?
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like this duality of emotions that I've seen you talk about. And so I thought it would be good to just bring it up because I know a lot of the parents have just dropped their kids off at college and are just in the same situation. And to normalize the struggle. And also toward the end, we can talk a little bit about some of the research and stuff that's out there to help go through it. But
Yeah.
I think that might be helpful if you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit about the leading up to and then the point of dropping off and just tell us a little bit about that story. How did it go? How's it going?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So it's been like 3 weeks at this point, I think, that they've been gone. And they both are living in the same town. They both are living in Santa Barbara. And my older one lived in a dorm last year, and now he's living in an apartment with some friends. And then my younger one is living in the same dorm that my older one lived in.
Okay.
And it's about an hour and a half from our house. So it's not terribly far. So some people will try to console me by saying, at least they're close. And as we talk about it, I don't feel like I'm grieving them not living here, or at least that's not how it presented at first. I was really grieving the end of a period, very intense period of my life of having children in my home.
Yeah.
And it was less about like what was happening for them or where they were or really anything about them in some ways. It was more the end of motherhood as I know it. And I don't know if everyone likes to think of it to such extremes, or maybe it's not helpful. But for me, it is helpful to redefine this stage of my life and create new language around it, which I'm still working on. But I experienced dropping off my youngest as a death, if I could. It felt that intense. People close to me have died in the past. And when I was like going through this process, I realized, oh, this feels the same. It feels like grief.
Yeah.
And that was surprising to me because when I dropped my first one off, I missed him terribly. And it was so much more about him and like him not being around and being curious and like longing for him. And I feel the same way. I love my younger one as well. Like I, of course, would miss him.
That's great.
Yes. But then it wasn't so much, like I said, not about him. And so Lincoln left. My oldest one is Lincoln. He left on a Friday afternoon to move into his apartment. And then my other one was going to move on the Tuesday. So this summer was kind of a lot of young adults, a lot of young men in my house, a lot going on. Then we started to switch into getting stuff ready for an apartment and getting stuff ready for a dorm. And I actually noticed that I wasn't doing the dorm stuff for my younger one. Like my firstborn, my first leaving, I was like on the like lists and like, what does you need for a dorm? And, ordering things and talking to him about it. And I was sort of doing that for the apartment for my oldest, but I was like, I don't know, a week in, I'm like, a week before Sawyer, my younger one, was leaving, I was like, I haven't done anything.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't ordered anything. I was just surprised. And I noticed for myself when I procrastinate about something, it's emotional usually.
Of course.
Yeah. So I was definitely resisting. Like I didn't want to think about it that much or open myself up. Busy summer, get Lincoln going, and then kind of shift gears to Sawyer. And so then I kind of did, and it all felt very neutral, and I wasn't all that emotional. Dropped Lincoln off, felt tender towards him, and then came home, getting stuff going, packing, talking to Sawyer, like, what comforter they want to bring, whatever. And he's never been one to let me decorate his room, or like he's so picky. So I just, bare minimums for him anyway.
Yeah.
So Tuesday morning comes. I know we're not leaving till like 4:00 in the afternoon because my husband wanted to come and he couldn't. So we were all going to meet for dinner. So we just kind of pushed it to closer to dinner time ish so he could meet up with us. So, Sawyer was running around. I went to physical therapy I had foot surgery this summer. And I was grumpy that morning. I was grumpy at PT. The guy was like, "How's it going?" I'm like, "It's terrible. My foot hurts.
Everything sucks.
I was like, "I've been doing this for a while. It's not getting any
Isn't
better."
working.
I was like in a bad mood, like kind of being bitchy.
Yeah.
And I was like, "This is weird. Like, I'm not usually all that kind of mean." And then I was like dismissive. I don't know. I was like, something is up with me. And I get in the car to leave, to come home, to go back to work. And I feel all of a sudden sick to my stomach. Like, I am not in my head. I'm not feeling things that are coming from thoughts. Like, I'm not having thoughts. I'm just in my body and I feel like I'm going to throw up.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what is this? And it was really about starting to recognize that Sawyer was leaving that day. And I don't know. My chest was heavy. It was just so physiological. And if anyone was like, well, what are you thinking? Or what are you worried about? Or like, what's going I had no thoughts.
Yeah.
It just felt like, oh my God, it's over. If there was any thought. Today is the day. And I did do like a little voice memo on my phone, could try to capture the what was going on, but essentially that was it. It was just my stomach hurt. I felt like a little kid who gets nervous and nauseous about doing something hard. And I got inside and I cried. I saw my husband and I just was like, he's leaving today. And I kind of had some words and I had some tears. And then I had to work.
Yeah.
So, I'm a coach like you. So I had to jump on a call. I did tell my people what was happening with my group program. I was like, hey, this is going on. I'm having some feelings, but I kind of worked through it. Finished my work day. It was like a half day. Still feeling off. Went for a really long walk. No thoughts still. Just sort of like, it's happening, it's happening, it's happening, it's happening. That was kind of it. Oddly enough, he called me. My younger one called me on my walk to tell me he had this profound experience the night before where he was like, my childhood is over. And it so was perfect that he said that because I was like, yes, and my motherhood is over. Like my period of raising children, to have children in childhood is over.
Right.
So he's like, yay, my childhood is over. And
I'm glad. He was
yes,
glad.
He's delighted and he's nervous and excited and, and I'm just like, I can't believe it's over.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we moved forward and he got back and started packing up the car. And he drove and my husband was going to come up with his car later.
Okay.
So I was driving with him in his car and he's so funny. So like the day before he was like, I'm so excited to drive up there. I'm like, I know what music I'm going to blare. And I'm like, he's like, I'm going to be, he pictured himself alone driving to college with like this, like he had a whole vision of himself. And I was like, well, I'm going to be in the car with you.
Surprise.
And he was like, what? No. And I was like, yes, I have to go in your car because dad's coming up later. And he's like, well, I'm going to have my music. And I was like, that's fine. But it's like, you don't have to have it that loud. It's going to be really loud for me. And then he's like, yeah, you can't complain about my driving. You can't complain about my music. Okay. I said, well, why don't we compromise like a little bit? And then this guy goes, the compromise is that you're coming in my car.
Wow. Okay. He is on his own. He's ready for adulthood.
He is ready in his, little heart and soul. He's done with childhood. He's going to drive in the car with, his Travis Scott songs playing really loudly. And normally I don't like when my kids drive. It like really activates my nervous system. Like parents of teens, like, yeah, that's like the hardest thing I
It
taught my
really
kids to
is.
do. It was the absolute worst for me.
Yes.
I feel like I'm gonna die all the time.
For real.
Yeah, like literally. Like did I die yet? Did I die yet? Like
Right? And they're like, "Will you calm down? I'm just fine." And you're like, "No, I
no,
don't
no,
feel
you
fine."
were about to die any second.
You
Yeah.
just slammed on the brakes and barely missed hitting that car. No, I'm not fine.
I hate it so much. So but he's gonna drive, and so the entire drive, I'm not thinking like, this is so sad. I'm gonna take my son to college. I am like, is it over yet? Is it over? Can we get out of the car?
Yeah.
Like, but I was having much more intense reaction than was warranted, and that just shows to me that I was in like a stress response. Like
Yes.
my stomach was hurting, my stomach had stopped hurting, but I was just earlier it had hurt, and then I was in my body like nervous and hyper vigilant and like fight flight like
Mhm.
ugh. So then we get there, fastest moving in history.
Okay.
Like I guess because we moved into the same dorm as we had the last year, I knew exactly what to bring. We set it up super fast, like literally 30 minutes maybe done, and was sort of like, what is it, like it wasn't that exciting.
Yeah. Just wasn't eventful. It's just, okay, we did that.
Yeah, we did that. And like one thing we needed to pick up from Target. So the plan originally was that my husband was going to meet us at the dorm, and then we would go to dinner,
Mhm.
and he was going to see it and like, I don't know, maybe come back. I don't know what we were all thinking, but basically we all met at the restaurant. We being Lincoln came from his
Okay.
apartment. So it was the first time we'd seen him since he'd moved in. And Kevin and my husband and Sawyer and Lincoln and I all at sushi restaurant in the Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
So great. Sawyer starts to not talk anymore because I think he saw his dorm and was like, I'm going back there. Like he
Yeah.
was just now in his head. Lincoln's chit chatty. Da, 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 da. I don't know how to cook food. Super cute. I'm just in it. And then it's time to say goodbye to Sawyer. And we just say goodbye on the street corner. We don't go back to the dorm with him because he has like orientation and popcorn movie night and dorm stuff. It's starting. And we're like, have no reason to go back. Everything's done.
Yeah.
So we're just like, bye.
Mhm.
Hug, kiss in front of a random sushi restaurant.
Yeah.
And then hug, kiss Lincoln, bye. And then we drive. I offer to drive because my husband had just driven up. And I'm chit chatty. When I dropped Lincoln off, I could not speak for 45 minutes.
Mm.
I was like numb and silent and like in it. But with Sora, I was like, it was so fast. Fastest thing in history. I was just like catching up with my husband.
Yeah.
Until we were about to get off the freeway at my exit. And I'm driving. And all of a sudden, my body decides to like empty itself of anything in it. Like it is as if my water.
Evacuation.
Yeah, it was like my water broke. But like a different kind of
But it
water.
wasn't the water that broke.
And I said to my husband, oh my God, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I have to go to the bathroom. And he's like, you don't shit in the car, And I was like, obviously I'm not planning to. I mean, it's just getting super uncomfortable. And I get home and it is like, I joked, I was like, my body heard empty nest and was just like, okay.
Yeah. Time to clear things out.
Empty it. Yeah. Oh my word. I could not believe it. I was feeling fine.
Yeah.
Ate sushi, chit chatty. And it was only like as I was getting off the freeway without any of my kids and coming home, I don't know, my whole body lost it.
Yeah.
And I spent the next 3 hours just in bed and in the bathroom, back and forth, just emptying. It's I was like being scraped. I was so like metaphorically what I was experiencing. Just like,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah. It's like it all built up
Uh-huh.
and
Not
all
in my head even. Yeah, my
uh
body.
absolutely. And
Mhm.
that's where really all the emotions are processed anyway.
Mhm.
Your brain gets out of the way. It's like 80% of the things you process are processed through the body. So even if you could rationalize, oh, it was smooth, it was 30 minutes, he's there, your body is telling itself and feeling otherwise.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes.
And of course, it's going to show up in one way or another. And so it's no surprise that that happens, right?
Yeah.
The gut is this, what they call the second brain.
Mhm.
And so even just having eaten something, and it could be related to the food, but at the same time, if you're going through some really serious emotional turmoil internally, your gut is not going to behave the way it
Mhm.
normally would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Like I it just took me off guard or like by surprise because I did normally I'm like such a processor and I kind of
Mhm.
know what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, and I'm really paying attention to my thoughts and working hard to, you know, stay regulated and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And yet, yeah, I'm almost like on a like a more subconscious level.
Right.
It was yeah, I just don't know how many times I've had it be physiological going through something
Yeah.
and not being in my head.
Yeah, absolutely. Because
Mhm.
you can rationalize away everything, and having the background that you have, where a lot of it is revolved around the thinking, from firsthand experience that much of it is processed in your body.
Mhm.
And you can't, you don't plan for it.
Yeah.
It's not like you're preparing for it, like I expect this to happen. Your body responds before your brain even recognizes what's going on.
Mhm.
And especially with grief,
Yeah.
you can say in your head, everything's fine, he's going to be okay, he's got this safe room, this is what he wants. You can explain it away all you want, but the emotions and the grief and the feelings are going to be processed in your body.
Mhm. Yeah. So finally went to sleep and woke up and then yeah, that feeling of deep fatigue when
Uh-huh.
something is when somebody dies or when you've
Yeah.
lost something, you know, intense. And I just went with it, allowed it. I just spent the day, I did a little work here and there, laid in bed, just kind of trusted that whatever was happening was supposed to be happening. And
Mhm.
it's been surprising to me. I haven't really cried since that morning before.
Yeah.
I haven't had a lot of like emotional tears or anything like that. It just has more felt a little bit confusing. Not that I'm confused, but like the tension between the two feelings
Mhm.
is like ambivalence, right? When you have two big emotions that are in competition with each other. It's like on one hand, of course, I am delighted for my children and they are completely ready to launch. Like
Mhm.
I don't have of course, I have little worries like, you know, are they going to be able to manage school and the social stuff? And like, you know, money is a huge problem too, whatever. Um, and as I have like concerns, but I feel that they're great. So I'm not worried about them. I don't worry about safety. I'm just
Mhm.
feeling happy. Like, I'm just like, good for them. It's great. And I've said it recently, it's like woohoo and boohoo. Like woohoo for them and boohoo for me.
Exactly.
And there's still woohoo for me
Yeah.
in terms of what's coming, but I'm not quite there
Yeah.
yet.
I can imagine having not retired myself, but for people who have worked in a job for a long period of time, it's similar to that. It's a
Mhm.
big transition that, you're really wanting, but you're also processing the loss of something that was really important and special to you.
And an identity.
Yes.
Mhm.
And the kind of on the topic of that grief, it's you having known the experience of grief, it's not something you can really plan for. It's not that
No.
you can say, those stages of grief as they studied it were applied to somebody who was in a terminal illness state.
Mhm.
So they knew something was coming. But when you are in a situation that you feel like you don't have a ton of control over, there's no like clear guideline of what you're going to feel and when. So you could be totally fine 1 minute and then the next day, like you feel like shit
Mhm.
and you don't know why. And it's because of the grief.
Yeah,
It
well,
just,
there's this loss that you're trying to integrate
yeah.
into create a new normal around that there's something that used to be true for me that my kids lived in my house and that's no longer true. And will they live here again? Of course. Will they be here for Thanksgiving? Of course.
Yeah.
But today they're not. Like I went to record this podcast with you and have a little record do not disturb sign that I put on my door. And I was like, I don't know if I ever have to put this on here
Yeah.
again because no one is here to disturb me.
Yeah.
And that makes me like feel free.
Mm-hmm.
And I also feel as if I've been something's been taken, like
Yeah.
something that I really liked. I really liked having children in my home. I liked being the primary mom and paying attention and being there. Of course, it's annoying, and teenagers are hard, and
Mm-hmm.
it is. It's a slow goodbye in terms of how much time you spend together. It does change all through adolescence, um, but I was still like, "Are you up for school?" or "How was school today?" I knew what time they generally got up and what time they generally got home and sort of what was up with their days, and to not know those things. And I guess I could look at I don't track my kids. I think I
Yeah.
never really did. I'm not like that. Um they were really independent already before they left. So it wasn't like I was like the one waking them up and this and that. But I was aware of what was going on. And
Right.
I could be like, what time did you wake up? Did you sleep
Yeah.
well? I don't that would be such a strange conversation to have with them every day. I'm not going to. It's different now.
Yeah. Even if
And
they do come back, it's different because when they were younger and they were living with you, it's different than when they're coming back for a shorter period of time. So it is a loss of a very specific season of parenting. And
mhm,
you and I are very similar, as I'm sure are a lot of my listeners, in that we were very involved in our
mhm,
parents, in our kids' lives as parents. And also, I can't speak for you, but I know for me, I always wanted to be a mom. And when I pictured
mhm.
being a mom, I pictured the little kid phase, taking them to school, going on field trips, the sleepovers and like those kinds of things. And then that's just gone. And then
Yeah.
they're adolescents, and then you're slowly letting them go. So it's a loss of the idea of what parenting is, and that
Mhm.
you're not going to get that back in that same form. So
No.
it's a big thing to process. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, it's the purpose of parenting is to stop doing it.
Hmm.
It's the weirdest job, right? Like if I do this really well, I won't have to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's not a job, but like the role or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so I have done it well, and that part is over in most regards. And it should be that way. And it is my gift to my children that I allow them to have young adulthood that is separate from me. It is vital for their development that we separate.
Yes.
It is not vital for my development that we separate.
Yeah. I get that.
I
Yeah.
don't need to end this
I
stage.
didn't want this. Like,
Yeah.
this is not what I signed up for. I signed up for, hugs and kisses at bedtime.
Yeah.
I signed up for going to Disneyland,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Not dropping my kid off at school and hoping that they're going to be okay,
And
but not
hoping that
really
they
know.
call me or that like we have so I'm redefining my relationship to
Mhm.
them and my role in their lives and how important it is that they like there was two moments with return helping Lincoln into his apartment that really stood out to me. The first was I was talking to him about what he wanted for his kitchen or like did he want to get some certain things for his apartment. I don't know specifics. And he said, "Mom, That's the fun part.
Yeah.
The fun part is me figuring it out.
Oh my gosh, he is so wise.
Yeah. And then we did go with him when he moved in, and his roommates had already moved in, a couple of them, and I was putting some things away in the kitchen, and his roommate had put some stuff away in the kitchen, and it was not well put away, right? Because just like a young man was like,
Yeah.
I have Tupperware. I'm going to put it on a top shelf
You're like,
in a
that makes no sense.
cupboard. No, those go down below. They go under the
Uh,
right. So I was kind of like moving things. They had a big thing of like Costco forks, and it was on the top shelf of a cupboard. And I thought it would be better if they were like lower or in the silverware drawer, even, or like.
Makes sense.
So I start to move them, and he's in the kitchen too. Not my son, somebody else's son, some other kid's son. And I'm moving them around, and I'm futzing in there. And I said, I was just thinking that you guys could put the forks right here because then you could, it'd be easier to find. And then he says this to me. I think that when we need a fork, we'll just find them.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong. I was like, "Oh my god, I need to get out of this kitchen right now.
It's time to go.
It's time to go.
Yeah.
I am overstaying. I'm in some sort of mom mode that is no one has asked me to do, that I do not have consent for. I'm not invited to do this. And my son is like, we're good here." And that was weird. It was weird. It was like, oh, I'm not supposed to be doing this part. Not supposed to, like, in like whatever, but it's not appropriate in some way. Like they're supposed to figure it out.
Exactly. And it's so important to verbalize this and normalize it, because you as a coach are fully aware, and you coach parents, like you are
Yeah.
fully aware of that you want them to figure it out. You know that.
Yes. It's
But
like my literal
harder
job
do
to
in
do that, to teach
Yes,
people to do that.
it's harder to do in practice, right?
Mhm.
Especially when you're going through a big transition.
Yeah.
And so also speaking to the fact that you are a coach and you do like know how to coach yourself and think about your thoughts and all the things. Do you feel like there is anything that you could have done or could have been done to reduce the impact of the challenge that is coming with the transition? Do you think that that's possible?
I don't know why you'd want to,
Mm-hmm.
because it's been really beautiful to be sad about it, because that means that I'm actually processing it and I'm transitioning. And I don't I don't think that there's been a problem here, or, and I know you're not suggesting that, but I think we often try to avoid pain,
Yeah.
and we're like looking for ways to get away from it, and I love it in some ways, like, because it's meaningful to me and I like to make meaning out of it. I think it would be very easy had I not been connecting to the fact that I was in a transition,
Yeah.
that it could have been easy for me to bippity boppity boo and move on and just be like, it's so great. I can go on this was one of my ahas. I've had a few funny ones. We went on a walk, and it was very hot, and we came home, and I just took off my pants, and I was just walking around in my underwear, which we're not that kind of family, like,
Yeah.
at all. Some
Yeah.
families are like that. We're just not. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I could do this every night.
Yeah, you can. You can do whatever you want.
And then I said to my husband, I was like, I think I'm going to be one of those people who no longer wears pants in the house. And he was like, please don't become that person. And I was like, I might. I get to do whatever I want
Hey,
now.
I can do whatever I want. Exactly. You've made it this far as a mom. You have earned at least that.
At least taking off your pants whenever you
At
want.
least.
Yeah. But I just could have been like, oh, this is so nice. Oh, this is so nice. And like, it's not that big of a deal. And they're happy. And I could have soothed myself with they're okay.
Okay.
But that would have been not acknowledging the transition that I'm in. And I think that is an easy thing to happen to moms at this point. And then it catches up to you because you're still going to want to be in that mom mode, futzing in the kitchen. How's your professors? What about this? And kind of sneaking in like through the back door
Yeah.
of, keeping them tethered to you so that you have your role and identity instead of going,
Yeah.
it's okay, I can move on. I can
Yep.
let this one go through my body.
It's a necessary part of transitioning into your adult relationship with them.
Yes. And it could happen for me. It happened, like as I'm leaving and
Yeah.
I'm in the transition of it. But I think as a coach, I knew it was I knew that I had been thinking about this transition because I'm a parenting coach. I've been thinking about it for 15 years.
Yeah.
Like trying to define it. What is it called? What's parenting? What's motherhood? What's being a mom? I've been working through these concepts for a long time. And so now that it's like was a transition, I was like, oh, I'm in this and now I'm redefining something.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, it would be easy to not go there.
I love that perspective too, that it's not something that needs to be fixed or to push away or to try to make better, that it's okay to just feel bad. And it's necessary to feel bad, to let those feelings come through. And if you don't, then it's going to be more difficult and they'll come back down the road, whether you like it or not. So it's either you allow it now or it'll come later.
Yeah.
At another point.
Yeah. And I don't want my need to be a mom and to have an identity and have a role in my children's life that looks like parenting, like a very specific role. I don't want my need for that role and that identity and that work to get in the way of my children's necessary development.
Yes.
Of breaking away from their parent. Like literally they're not supposed to be thinking about me.
Yeah. It's true. It's heartbreaking, but it's true. They're not laying in their dorm room thinking, gosh, I really miss my mom.
I wonder what she's doing right now.
I wonder what she's doing,
I wonder what's for dinner tonight at my parents' house. Like, yeah.
That's not what's happening.
And if it is, maybe we've gone astray. We've gone like off track a little bit here. Like maybe we've created a little bit of interdependence that's not necessary. Obviously they're going to sometimes miss home and things like that. But
sure.
If I'm needy for them and they're meeting a need of mine, then what need are they not meeting of theirs? If they're needy, fine. I get to decide how I want to show up and what boundaries I want to set or not. But if I'm needy for them to keep me happy, that's not, I don't want that. That's not healthy.
It's a really good insight. It's absolutely true. Throughout the entire parenting process, it's slowly transitioning to that, to where they need you less and less. Yes. You're still there for them, but your value and your inherent self-worth is not tied up in their need for you anymore.
Yes. And that is tricky for
it is.
For all of us. And I think that's it. That's, parenting teens and the audience for this podcast is really redefining your responsibility to your kids. And as you decide that you are less responsible for them, they have to become more responsible for themselves. And that responsibility, the less I'm responsible for of them, then that creates a gap because I have more time because I'm not like, did you do your homework? Did you pick up your room? Or did you set your alarm? You better go. Your boss is going to be mad. It's almost 4:30, whatever. Like that kind of stuff. If I'm backed off of that, I have a gap that I'm going to learn to find fulfillment some other way.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful opportunity to prepare you for this stage of, when they roomier nest and when they're separated from you.
Right.
But I think a lot of times the fear, we double down on control because we're afraid of them and their decisions and all of that. And so we pull back, we take on more of their responsibility because are they going to get into college? And we talked about this a lot of times. But then this perspective of what's next, it's like the less I manage for them, good for them, but the less I manage for them, then the more I am responsible for managing my own identity outside of them. And if that's done well, this part is easier.
That is probably one of the biggest challenges, especially if your main identity is to be the mom of XYZ kids, right? And so when the role is transitioning into more of like a partnership or even, just connected friendship type relationship as they get into adulthood, then who needs me? What's my value? And that's one of the biggest challenges, at least that the moms that I talk to have, is like, I have this downtime now that used to be dedicated to helping them, talking to them, making sure that they're on top of things. And now I don't know what to do with it. And it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't know how to fill that space.
It's so true. I find that that's been true for me. By the way, you said that what's next. I've been thinking of it from parenting to mentoring. Because you said connected friendship or partnership. That's just, I don't know if the label will stay for me, but and mentoring requires consent. So I'll always be a mom. I'll always be their mother and be there for them and, show up, right? If they call. But I want to be, here's how I think about it. When they're little, it's like let me frame it this way. Your children are playing basketball. Okay. And when they're really little, you're like right on the court. Like you're courtside, like maybe you're even in the game a little bit, like throw the ball, like you're real close. And then you go to the bleachers and you're in the front row. And that's like, elementary school. You're kind of right on the front row. You get to see everything. And then slowly throughout their lives, you're moving up the bleachers and you're seeing you're less close, but you're still at the game.
Yeah.
And, the senior year, you're at the nosebleeds, but you're there.
Yeah.
And then this stage, I'm not at the game anymore.
Okay.
I'm outside. I'm not even at the stadium. I'm just getting the highlights reel. And I love that. That's enough. And that's great. I don't even really want to be at the game anymore. Like I'm tired of being on those bleachers. They're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I realized that mentoring is not the highlights reel. It's the game plan before the kid goes out on the court.
So much.
And I want to be in that conversation. I want to be in the game plan conversation before the game. So that's what I'm moving towards more and more with my kids. Like, what decisions are you making? What are you thinking about? What's your plan? Like, I'm more of a curiosity and like, let's troubleshoot that. And that requires a lot of consent and I have to be super detached.
Yes. Being authentically curious versus fearful or judgmental.
Yes. So I've been thinking about that new role and how to cultivate that and what it looks like. And that's been really exciting to me. But now I can't remember what we were talking about before that.
I don't know either. But the point is that all the things you're saying, I love that analogy of the basketball court. And this is what we as parent coaches say all of the time. It's like a slow letting go. You're not there anymore. You're just releasing a little bit of the involvement. And as you do that, you're filling whatever it was that you were dedicating to them with something that gives back to you instead. So that when they do transition out of your house, it's not like a smack in the face. Now I have 8 hours a day that used to be dedicated to that, and I don't know what to do with it. It's like, yes, there's emotional loss, and I miss them, but it's not, who am I? What am I supposed to do with myself?
Yes, right. I think it's mom mode to me mode. I've been thinking about it a little bit, and that does happen in high school. It's like, I was available for my kids after school, all of high school. Did I spend from 3 to 8, 3 to 9 with them? I did not. Like,
absolutely not.
Super weird if I had, right? But I was available for the conversations if they came, and I wanted
Yes.
to be part of it. And I wasn't chasing them down trying to ask them like what their homework assignment was or whatever.
Yeah.
I was just there, and there was like some tactical transactional conversations like, hey, you haven't taken the trash out, whatever.
Right. Those
Um,
things.
but then I've had that time, but I had that time kind of earmarked for them, and I would have to fill it. And that's what I've noticed in the last few weeks is that I don't need to be available to anybody.
Yeah.
And that's really weird.
Mm-hmm.
I am unclear what that looks like. Like, I'm like, oh, I could work more hours. That's interesting.
You could.
Like I kind of stopped work all these years around 3:00.
Yeah.
And not necessarily, well, I work with parents, so a lot of times they're not available after 3
Yeah.
anyway. But not necessarily because I was done for the day, just I wanted to be available. And
Yeah.
that's interesting to see the time or the weekends. I'm kind of like, I have the entire day to do whatever I want.
Yeah.
If that means wearing my no pants all day, that's great. So that's just now new. Like it's been 3 weeks, like I said, and it is only these small things dawning on me. Like at the grocery store, I'm not buying, the
Yeah.
Trader Joe's Takis. Like I'm just like, oh, I don't need to buy protein bars because I don't eat them.
Right.
So that's been very interesting and very fun to explore that. But I'm just now kind of coming into that. Like,
And
ooh,
it's
what's
all part
next?
of just that evolution of your role as a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And to also have compassion for, I don't have anything to do on Saturday, and that can feel really heavy too.
Mm-hmm.
It can feel expensive and it can feel heavy, but there's no judgment of either.
Yeah.
It's part of the process. I'm sitting with whatever's coming up. I'm allowing whatever is happening to come through. I'm getting support when I need it, finding someone to talk to if I need that, and coping or managing all of the emotions in a way that feels good. Like I started crocheting. It's something to do with my hands. It feels creative and like it feels good and it's not productive. And that was like one of the things that I really needed is something that's not productive and it fills the time. So finding things like that, right?
Yeah.
To fill in those.
Exploring it. Exactly. Yeah. I love that. And I think that was really helpful that you said it can feel expansive or it can feel heavy. And I sometimes I feel both at one time. Like I dread all the time and I'm also happy about it. It's a strange mixed place. And like I don't know if moms, I don't feel this, but I think it's easy to feel guilty that I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
It's easy to feel guilty that I'm happy that I'm done raising kids. And maybe someone's listening, they're like, well, I'm not grieving. Okay, maybe you're not grieving because you're not transitioning. You're not letting yourself. I don't know. Or maybe you didn't like it that much. You're not that
Yeah.
sad that it's over. And like, that's okay.
Absolutely.
It's a really difficult life,
It is.
Sage. Raising kids is not easy.
It's not. And if you are like, thank goodness that's done, absolutely fantastic. It's not like you have to grieve it or be sad about it. You can be 100% happy about it as well.
Yeah. And especially if you had really tough teen years, like you
Yeah.
might not be sad for a couple of years. You might just
Yeah.
be in relief. And, my mom died of Alzheimer's and it was like a mercy, right? When she passed away because the disease is so terrible. So then, it felt kind of happy and you're like,
Right.
you're not supposed to feel happy. Yeah, you can. You can feel
You're allowed.
happy. You can feel sad. You can miss somebody. Funny enough, Sawyer came home for 2 hours on the couple days after he moved out because he drives. He's close enough to pick up something he ordered. This is not to see us. He just picked up something he ordered that went to our house, a shirt. And I had no idea what to do with this information. I was like so sad that he was gone and now he's here. And I was so confused. And I was like playing Uno with him.
You're toying with me.
My friend was like, leave so I can miss you. And that was exactly how as soon as he left, he's like, okay, I'm not going to spend the night after all. I'm going back to SB, And then he got in garage door closed, and I just felt relief.
Yeah.
I was like, leave me. My friend's like, leave me with my sad feelings and my
Yes.
empty fridge.
Yeah. Let me just be in this experience. Don't come back and play around with me here.
Yes.
Let me just be sad, because when you come back, I'm like hopeful. And then I'm
Yeah,
also sad
or I'm back
again.
into mom mode. Like, I want to
Right?
grieve the end of mom mode. I don't want to
Yeah,
be in it anymore.
exactly. And you want to walk around the house without your pants and not have to worry about these things.
Yeah, not like think about like, are they almost home from work and like
I
what's
know.
going to happen? I just don't want to think about it. I like not thinking about them anymore,
Yeah.
actually. But I am a little sad that I don't. So it's very strange
There's
period.
so much going on. It's like you've got the thoughts and the feelings about it, and then the thoughts about the thoughts and feelings about it.
Yes. Yes. It's so true. So,
So
yeah.
that all of that was really interesting information. And I think listening to your experience, I've got a senior now. So I woke up just yesterday morning thinking, oh my gosh, she's not going to be here next year. Like, she's going to be away, and I'm not going to see her when she wakes up in the morning and gets her coffee. And I got like that first kind of feeling of, oh my gosh, it's actually happening. And it's still a year out. And then we had, a grad night meeting, and I just felt like I wanted to cry the whole time. And I'm just like, why? But at the same time, it's fun and exciting, and it's all about the roller coaster of life. And that's what this is.
Yes. It's like being a mom is a long goodbye.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It is. And also figuring out who you are in the process.
Yeah.
Now that you are transitioning out of being full mom, who are you outside of that?
Mm-hmm.
And allowing yourself to be that. And maybe it's different than what it was before you became a mom.
I
Maybe
can
you're
barely
gonna be-
remember, right?
Yeah,
Like,
so long ago.
Yeah.
I still remember, like, as we close out, there's something I thought of that reminded me all of this is when I was on a field trip with my daughter, who was in first grade at the time. We went to an aquarium, and I remember I was sitting at a light, and I had several 6-year-olds in the car, and so it was full chaos mode. And I saw some retired women, going for a walk, and they were going to go for a little walk near the beach. And I was like, I can't wait until I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Just in the middle of the day during the week, and just be with my friends and go for a walk and do whatever I want. And now that I'm nearing it, I'm like excited and also sad. And that is the journey of it all.
Yeah, it is. And it's okay to be excited and sad. That's like what I think I've realized, is that I can carry both of these very intense emotions at the same time and toggle back and forth between them and even intertwine them. And it's actually very beautiful.
Yeah.
So thank you for letting me share my story.
I'm so glad you did. I love hearing a good story, and I know that I can definitely see a lot of myself in everything you're sharing, as can many of my listeners as well, whether they have a college student or soon to be college student, or that's 5 years away. Everybody knows that that's a phase of parenting. So it's helpful to just hear your perspective. So thank you for coming on. This was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you.
All right. See ya.
If you liked this episode, I'd like to invite you to join Raising Happy Teens, my free online community for parents of teenagers, where every week I host Ask a Coach. You bring your parenting questions, and I provide expert advice and coaching. Click the link in the show notes to join today. I'll see you inside.